Hey friends, you're tuned in to the Learn or Be Learned podcast, a show where wisdom meets curiosity in order to discover the human experience. I'm your host, Shiva D, and remember, you either learn from or you're learned from. Now, let's get back to the show. All right, welcome back, friends, to a wonderful episode on Learn or Be Learned. This is the next book episode. I know it's been a while, but we're going to try to do a little bit more of these, and we're going to try to switch some things up in this podcast in season 2 and try out some new stuff, and I'm really excited to get all that underway with you. And here in the next month or two, I'll send out a lot more updates on social media, mainly LinkedIn and Instagram. So, find me there if you're curious about updates, next drops, stuff like that. The conference that we're hosting in October, all things like that. So, I must say that I haven't been the most consistent or transparent, and I'm very sorry about all that. And I'm hoping to change that up by being more consistent, bringing to you the value that I have promised, and putting this back on the map. And I'm excited to grow the show with you all. So this is a very amazing book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And in this episode, we're going to dive deep into the realms of the human experience. And who better to talk about it than Viktor Frankl in his book? Because, man, this was a true gem. So without further ado, let's dive into it. And so like I said, find me on socials. That's where I'll have all the updates, like website dropping, transcripts, courses, things, everything like that is going to be along the way. And I really am glad that you guys are part of this community, and I'd love to see you guys there and grow it with me. So let's get into it. All right. So before we begin, I just want to say this book was really good. These book episodes don't do justice oftentimes, and I think in order to get your own perspective, I highly recommend you guys read the book on your own, or at least your own understandings and perspectives on books. But the main point of these book episodes are often to kind of talk about ideologies and ideas and share them and how we can apply it to our lives, and how this better will help us understand the human experience, which I drop a lot, the name, the coined term. I drop the quote-unquote human experience term a lot, as you'll be seeing. And really what that is about understanding, which is really just defined as, the characteristics and key events of a human's life, which is often just seen as critical. I call them critical moments, magic moments, that characterize and develop along one's lifetime, and how that there are multiple pillars that encompass the idea of a human experience, from health, wealth, relationships between people, and spirituality, which I often see as the relationship with oneself and one as whole, right? The collective, the conscience. So how in tune are you with your surroundings, with Mother Nature? How in tune are you with yourself? I think that's often what spirituality is, as I see it. And for sure, we'll get more into those things. But, this is, in this book, Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl takes us on a journey through his life experience in a concentration camp, and the powerful insights he's gained about the human spirit and finding meaning amongst the suffering and pure agony that they had faced. This really reminds me of episode 59 that I had recorded with Sarah M. Sorry, I don't recall how to pronounce her last name, but she had talked about being starved and captive in a communist rogue concentration camp and in Cambodia. And it was an incredibly heartfelt and difficult experience that she had gone through, that she shares. And this book, talks about a similar circumstance, of course, this being the Holocaust and him being a Holocaust survivor. So I don't want this to be just another passive listening experience. I want you guys to take some actionable steps away from this so that you can apply it and implement it into your lives and find purpose and meaning into your own suffering, right? In episode 73, we talked about pain versus pleasure, and often seeking pain leads to suffering, and this is where you can find meaning in that suffering, especially when things don't feel as bright or you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is very important for you guys. This is very important when you often don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, or things are starting to feel dark and you're losing hope, right? So it's really important where you can find a root and anchor meaning into something, right? So this is a good episode and a good book. So I'm really excited to share the takeaways. So the first takeaway from Man's Search for Meaning is this idea that we always have a choice. We always have a choice in how we respond to things in life. We always have a choice, even when it doesn't look like we have any choice. For example, being in a concentration camp, you always have the very last resort of choice, which is how you respond to things in life. And trust me, I understand it's easier said than done. It's definitely something that takes a lot of time to grow into, right? But even in the darkest of times, Frankl talks about how this circumstance may seem beyond your control, but we still have the freedom and free will to choose how we react to things. Our attitude is. That is the beauty of that. Even when you don't feel as though you have control of anything else, you have control of yourself. So I think we should make a conscious effort to be more mindful in our reactions, and I'm always trying, and I'm not perfect. I snapped at someone recently the other day, and I'm always trying, right? So, and I acknowledge that. So, meditation, breath work, things like this really help as well, and I've noticed that help in my life. And going back to it, I want to talk about how we can find meaning in our lives, right? So Frankl emphasizes that meaning is not something we can chase externally, but rather it's something we must create within ourselves. So to do this, we need to identify our unique strengths, our passions, and our values. So take a moment and ponder on what truly matters to you. Go ahead and pause it or think about it, and think about what brings you joy, what makes you feel like life has purpose. What makes you jump out of bed? You remember that time when we were kids and you had a school field trip, or your school was going to get to go do something, or your family was going to go on a trip, and you jumped out of bed, you were up at 5 a.m, or you were up so early, and you're so excited because you didn't know what the day was going to hold, but you were ecstatic about the uncertainty. That uncertainty brought you joy in it of itself. And oftentimes, even to this day, the anticipation of joy is often a lot more satisfying than the actual event, if you think about it, right? Let's say you've saved up for 2 years to go on a trip to Hawaii. The anticipation of finally getting to go to that trip, it's 1 week away, or it's 5 days away, that anticipation is often just as joyful as the event itself, because like we talked about in episode 73, pleasure is fleeting, and it's only a momentary, transient feeling that you'll have while you're there. And unfortunately, part of the human condition is we readjust our baselines based on external factors, right? So we go on a vacation, and next thing you know, that becomes our new baseline within 1 or 2 days. We're like, this feels so good. And then you don't feel that kick back in until you're packing up, you're about to leave. You take one last look at the hotel room or the resort or the villa or wherever you're staying. And you're like, man, this was such a good trip. And you start reminiscing a little bit, right? That's when it kicks in again. There is a moment where I think we all kind of get adjusted that this is it, right? This is at least for the momentary time of few days or weeks or however long you are somewhere, this is what we're adjusting to now, right? I guess in a way, adjustment period. The threshold changes for what feels new, what is the word? Antique? What feels new, what feels novel is what I was looking for, right? The novelty aspect fades. And It's crazy because I'm actually in India right now for a 3-month trip to work on myself and a lot of different things like I mentioned. I totally will share this journey with you guys, but I'm a firm believer that I don't like to talk about and share advice with things that I'm not comfortable enough to provide yet, right? So you won't often see me talk about finances or wealth because I don't want to steer people as I'm also learning myself. But in due time, I will also, start talking about health and how people can grow their wealth and things like that. But things that I'm good at now is communication and understanding cultures, understanding people, and networking, genuine networking, and that's often how I've gone to different phases of my life that I am in now. If those of you, will often maybe see my Instagram or see things that I'm doing or have done, and you're like, what? It's really who you know. It really, really is, and comes down to who you know. One of my friends, he talks about the idea of who, not how, right? You have an idea, you want to solve something, it's always who, not how. Who do I need to know to get this done? Who do I need to talk to get this done? It's not how, right? Because if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And, that was a little side tangent, but going back to it, I do think we need to identify our strengths, passions, and values. And I do think you should take a moment and ponder what really matters to you, right? So here's a thought that truly stuck with me while reading this book. No matter the circumstance, we always have the power to change ourselves for the better. And Frankl said this beautifully. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. God, that's amazing. That's so profoundly true, right? Even when your back's against the wall and you have nothing left, you feel that there's the darkness is swallowing you whole, that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. The only light left to flicker is the hope in your own mind, is your attitude, is your reactions. And if you lose that and you let somebody take that away from you, you really do have nothing left. If you react to people, you're giving in to them. If you snap and you yell at somebody, you're giving them power, right? They're able to sway your baseline, your emotional state, and you're giving them the power to do so. And who are they to have the power to affect your entire day, right? So, my friends, let's take this challenge and turn it into an opportunity for growth, right? So, reflect on the areas in your life that you want to improve and take a small, actionable step every day to make this a positive change. And it doesn't have to be a big one. Start with 60 seconds of meditating or whatever the thing is. Make it small. In Atomic Habits, which is an episode I did, let me see what episode that was. Here, episode 21, I did a book episode on Atomic Habits, and James Clear, the author, talks about compound growth and how small steps every day add to large, actionable change. So, in the first month or two, you might not even see, in the first week to the month, even you might not see growth. By month 2, you'll see growth. These are all arbitrary numbers, by the way. By month 3, your friends and family will see growth. By month 4 through 6, society will see growth. By year 1 and 2, the world will see your growth, right? So these are arbitrary numbers, but you understand what I mean is it takes time, and that's what the whole thing about compound growth is, right? So I encourage you to take small steps and make positive change in that. Another profound takeaway from Man's Search for Meaning is that the importance of connecting with others. Human connection is so important, right? We are human beings. We are social creatures. So our bond with others gives us immense strength and support during tough times. And there are studies to suggest that being isolated and alone and having no support system actually lowers your lifespan and increases your mortality rate. Brings you closer to death quicker, to be honest. And I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it with people that are close to me, and the profound effect it has very quickly on them from being alone. So having people is so important, and having positive people is so important, right? I'd rather have no friends than bad ones, people that bring you down. And I'm not just saying that. I've been through that. I've cut people that were constantly bringing me down during tough times, and that was just things I just didn't need. And it's important that and I think the really important thing here is, right, in this example in particular, having no friends is better than having bad ones, because having no friends leaves room for better ones. You will not find better friends if you continue to keep your bad ones. Does that make sense? Right? Because if your buddies like to drink all the time, or your buddies like to do dumb shit, or your buddies like to, I love this quote, good friends consume together, great friends create together, right? So if you guys are just consuming stuff, video games, TV, junk food, bars, and that's all you do, that's just the people that's the trajectory of your life, right? People often say, show me your friend group and I'll show you your life. Your network is your net worth. And all these things is so important, and it's so profoundly true. So if you really want to escalate and catapult to the next stage of your life, really take an introspective look of not just yourself, but your support system, your surrounding groups, and your network, really your social circle, your support group. There was this episode I did, a guest episode with Ron Worley, episode 35, and he talks about the 3 different stages he has of different social groups, right? Really close people, a little less close, acquaintances. He says, never burn bridges, and I think to a large extent this is true. Sometimes, unfortunately, you do have to cut people off if they don't respect your boundaries. That can be even tougher if it's a very good friend or family even. Now let's talk about hope. Frankl talks about hope as a powerful force that kept him going even in the darkest of hours. And it's essential to have hope, because to believe that a better day lies ahead is the only way you'll get through the darkness that swallows you in those deepest, most darkest of days. So, nurturing hope within ourselves and keeping the light within us from dying out is incredibly important. And I know today mental health can be a very not talked about topic, but needs to be talked about because so many people need help. That this is why I believe topics like these are so important, right? So to inspire others with our courage and optimism, I think together we can create a ripple effect in a better society tomorrow and a more positive world. And that starts with us, and that starts with you, and that starts with us building a community. So, if you know anybody that can really use some positive encouragement or need some wise words, I really encourage you guys to share this episode with them, because I think so many people could be better off learning from even the darkest of days from Viktor Frankl in a concentration camp, right? And if he can make it through that, we can make it through our issues and our struggles and our suffering as well. So finally, friends, remember, life is not just about pursuing happiness or pleasure. It's also about finding a sense of purpose, oftentimes through pain. And as Viktor Frankl said, for success, like happiness, cannot persuade, it must ensue. So don't get caught up in the pursuit of happiness alone, and instead focus on the meaningful work and contributing to society. Instead, focus on doing meaningful work, contributing to society, and cultivating a life that brings fulfillment. Because at the end of the day, it's about the contribution you make, and that's one of the only things that's left behind in this world is the impact you have made on others. You can't take the money with you. You can't even take your family with you, right? What is that quote in Mad Men by John Hamm, I think? That's the actor's name. He said, we're born alone and we die alone, and society just puts a ton of rules to make us forget it. And I think that's so true, right? Because the only thing that I think at the end of the day, that gives us meaning as humans, is often contributing and helping and giving back and cultivating a better tomorrow. But that starts with finding hope within ourselves, even when times are tough, because life is always going to have ups and downs, and I think it's important to anticipate both, right? And that's why I love Stoicism and why I think it's important, because it creates a baseline that doesn't falter whether you are on the ups or downs. So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this one last challenge, right? Choose one key takeaway from today's episode. There was 2 or 3, and commit to applying this into your life for this next week. Share your journey with me on social media and use hashtag #LearnOrBeLearned, and let's support each other on this path for growth and understanding. I'm going to be posting a lot more on LinkedIn and Instagram mainly, and then in the coming months, it'll be more YouTube and video podcasting, and we'll go from there. And I'm trying to build this community, so if you guys are interested and want to learn more, the website is also on the way, so just stay tuned with these episodes, and I'll leave little bits of updates here and there throughout the episodes, and I'm looking forward to growing this together with you all. So thank you so much for joining me today. Stay curious, stay open-minded, and remember, every experience, every encounter is an opportunity to learn and grow. So until next time, this is Shiva D signing off from Learn or Be Learned. And remember, friends, you either learn from or you're learned from. So thanks. Bye.